Welcome back to Narratives in Black for part 2 of our captivating conversation with Catherine T. Morris. In this segment, we dive into the second half of her journey, exploring her work with the Boston Foundation, her insights on equity and inclusion in the arts, and her mission to create lasting impact through community-driven initiatives. Catherine shares her thoughts on empowering the next generation of creatives and the future of cultural advocacy. Stay tuned for this powerful continuation of her inspiring story. To create BAMS Fest and bring it here, like you could have done this back in Philly.
Could have, yep.
You sure could have. But the fact that you brought it to Boston is because you knew that there was nothing here that had that.
Correct.
But also, what I admire is bringing back pieces of what you've experienced here to Boston for those folks that may never go to Philly to a festival.
Correct.
Or experience the HBCU feeling that you experienced at college.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on the 1 week, 25 events, 20K. I'm just like, excuse me, make it make sense. What were some of the biggest challenges, though, that you faced in the early years of organizing BAMS Fest here in the city? Because I can only imagine at the time, this is the 2000s, you're coming back to Boston, the recession's like 2000s. It was really rough, uncertainty in a lot of different places, changing of politics, and you came in a very prime time to come back home to do this.
Yes, I did.
Without having an exhaustive list of challenges, what were some of your biggest ones, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest one was convincing my family of an idea that seemed too ambitious. Right? They knew I dreamed, and that I always would follow up on those dreams to be things in reality. But this was like really big.
Yeah.
But my mom, who knows me the best, she's like, you never turn your brain off. And I don't. Because I live in color constantly. I'm like, what if we do this? What if we do that? So it was convincing my family of this thing that they knew was going to be a lot of work. And similar to being a medical kid, it's like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to commit the rest of your life to this? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. What could go wrong? So I had to get over that hurdle. And then I had to understand the landscape of Boston, the arts landscape. Lots of things had changed. At that time, former Mayor Marty Walsh was trying to figure out his platforms. And I was hearing these rumblings of supporting the arts, didn't know what that meant. But I was hearing these interesting sides of a Boston that was and where it is and where it could be. And I'm like, all right, so there could be solutions. But I also heard a lot of hurt, a lot of trauma, a lot of contemplation, a lot of our city would never. And I'm like, we've been deprived. And when you're deprived, you don't believe it's possible, right? And I hung on to that a lot. But I had I was going through grad school, and I was in a beautiful class. I randomly took a business plan writing course just because. And that's where I wrote the business plan for BAMS Fest. Was in college, graduate school. And I took that exact plan and I went to City Hall with it. And I was told immediately it would never happen. 2014.
How did that make you feel?
I was hurt as hell.
At any point in time, did you think, that's it, I'm not gonna do it here?
Hell no.
You were like, I'm gonna fight this.
I told him, I'm gonna see you in 2018. I already told him that.
And what was that process like between 2014 to 2018?
I had a lot of student debt, and I was like, you gotta make a choice. So I took almost more than $20,000 of my personal money and I started the organization.
Wow.
Could have paid off my loans by now, just so you know. But I was like, you know what? I've gained all these beautiful skills and experiences, and I don't want for nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of people talking so bad about my city. The only people who can talk bad about Boston are people
From
from
Boston.
Boston. And no city is perfect, right? But
Absolutely not.
seeing the relationship and similarity between Boston and Philly, I'm like, if Philly can do it, so can we. We're sister cities. We're rooted in history. We're a part of the original 13, like the architects, like all the things. It's right there. They're probably just a better sister than we are. And so that was the flame of infinite imagination of what could a festival infrastructure do to change the trajectory of our city, right? So made the decision to $22,000 exact, start the organization.
Wow.
I was working at MIT. I worked a very hard job, but I worked in the Office of Campus Activities. I worked 3 different shifts. And the latest one was 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning.
Oh my goodness. You love you some graveyard shifts.
I don't. But in that experience, it's because of MIT students that have saved me. Of beyond the academics, there is a huge, huge creative student community. And I got to be in all of it. All of it. And to hear these beautifully intelligent students immerse in dance, art, Lindy Hop, whatever. And I'm like, wow. And they just needed a little bit of softening of the edges of how to engage with community. And that's what I knew how to do. So while I'm in grad school doing that job, I'm also building this plan and trying to convince other people of a vision they couldn't see yet.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time at Haley House. I had many coffees, many teas, and I'm asking different people about Boston then, where it is now, where it should be going, and what my dream is. And most people were like, "Oh, that's ambitious. That's cool." I'm like, "No, I'm gonna get it done, but you don't know me yet, even though I'm from here."
Right.
So, 2015, I do my first partnered event. And it was with none other than the Valerie Stevens. And when I tell you, I love everything about that woman. Her voice, I was coming off of the train on Mass Ave, and she was performing 3 blocks down. And I'm like, yep, she gonna be the one. So I did my first show. My mom was with me from day one, and I'm wearing all the Bands Fest stuff, and I'm like, hey, here's the thing that I'm gonna do, and people are, oh, that's exciting. And so I was building the momentum for what I was gonna do 4 years from then.
Wow.
I literally, between 2015 and 2018, was doing about 12 events a year, growing the base of artists, growing the trust, presenting quality, the different
Yes.
aspects of the arts.
So we were talking about COVID
Yes.
in 2020. That was a very hard time for all of us.
Yes.
My question to you was, what were you thinking when that happened? You got the news that everything was shut down. Pause. What did you feel? How were you thinking? And then the pivot.
Well, a couple of things were happening. One, at that time I was working at a museum, and we were at this beautiful point of Black artistry at its finest in an all-white space.
Sure was.
And so the momentum was happening, and I had just booked these amazing national acts that I knew was just gonna be like that key ingredient to like unapologetically doing Blackness and justice. And we had to pivot, and I had to make the hard phone calls like, yeah, we gonna need, our money back. We don't know what the return date is, and I don't wanna hold you. So that was happening. So I think like any industry, like having to shut down your imagination for a little bit because the unknown of the health of the world, no one has a clue. The other piece that was running through my mind was being a mom, the world is going to change for my son in this moment, meaning that the playground is no longer available. The elements and aspects of socialization are no longer available. And the quality time is going to look very different for a young baby.
Yeah.
So questions around my own motherhood were running rampant through my head about, oh my God, what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. And then the other piece was Bands Festival. We're coming into the third year. We had locked in all of our contracts, you know, talked to the city, got all of our permits, like, we can't be outside.
Because this is 3 months
Yes.
before BAMS Fest is supposed to happen in 2020.
And we were watching every festival. We had made calls, like, what you gonna do? We don't know. And we're like, well, I don't wanna do this to Black people. I don't wanna keep us in suspense, because how we plan is very different. So, like, yeah, we're gonna have to postpone. But what didn't sit well with me was we still have to create something for these artists that have spent the time to apply. You know, we've marketed and promoted them. So what are we going to do? So we went through the first year of COVID just ideating. I told my entire team, take the year off because we just don't know what we're going to do. And during that time, I had assembled a small group of people in building a brain trust about the future of the organization and the festival. Like, we don't know if we're coming out of this, but we have these artists and we got to figure what we're going to do to support them. And so we ended up taking the music piece of it. And when things got a little bit better, like venues were available, they just weren't public. Mm-hmm. We decided to take our lineup from 2020 and do a virtual series in 2021 called Amplify the Soul series. And we essentially recorded those performances at the highest quality in some of the major closed venues, just to revitalize the spirits of artists because there was just the unknown. Two, put people back to work. Put them back to work. Do it carefully, right? All the protocols. Do it carefully, and we ended up recording 11 performances across a handful of venues, and then we released that content online on our YouTube channel. And because everyone was home, it was the highest rating of viewership. We had 80,000 global views.
Wow.
Just for 20-minute segments.
Wow.
What that did for us is that when we came outside in 2022, we saw the highest attendance because of what we did in 2021. And while that was happening, we partnered also with one of our sponsors to pick a restaurant, 2 or 3 restaurants, and we fed all the artists in our Rolodex, right? Because you don't know people's situation.
You all did do that. Soleil was one of those amazing places.
Yep.
What was your thought process around that? Like, you obviously want to care for the artists,
Absolutely.
you want to care for the community. You also did a competition type series
did.
as well with
Versus vibes.
It was like versus, right?
It was a versus, actually.
It was like a versus. I'm like, it was a real versus. For those who don't know, Timbaland and Swizz Beatz was huge in the versus world in 2020. If y'all forgot,
But we were doing that too locally. We did a virtual competition for those that wanted to secure their spot at a future festival. We didn't know when that was going to be, but we did it.
and brought some really good judges in too.
Yes, we had man. Our first year we had Fonte, I want to say, or it might have been Moo Fresh.
Yes, Moo Fresh.
It was Moo Fresh that year, and people applied. It was the most craziest thing. People applied. We had a panel that helped us to review, and we got down to the final 3. We took those artists. We helped them pre-record in state-of-the-art facilities that were closed to the public, but again, right, putting people to work.
One of them was the Strand, right?
Mm-hmm. We had the Box Center. We had the Strand in the Bridgeside Soundstage, or the Bridge Soundstage in Cambridge. And what was interesting was the amount of intensity and intentionality of high production value work in the midst of COVID. Mm-hmm. Everyone's in masks, everyone's sweating, just all bad breath, whatever. But we knew that this would be a remarkable opportunity because it put people to work. Like, artists could still create in a virtual world, right? So, and then I started trying to decide, okay, who could we have judge? Because I don't want to hold that responsibility.
Sure don't.
And so we reached out to a handful of local people. We landed with Moo Fresh as our national person. And in real-time setting, we had a live judge review, and they selected their winner. And then that winner got $1,000 worth of photography time, recording studio time, coach time, life coach time. And it was something else, I couldn't think of what it is. But they got this full package that was practically $5,000 worth of services in COVID. And then repeated that again in 2021.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Where did this idea come from? Like, why? What was like?
I care.
Where did it come from?
I think the first one came from watching what the Roots Picnic did. And they did a virtual talent show, or I shouldn't say talent, they did a virtual showcase of artists from around the world. And I was like, all right, that's dope. How can I, though, spark a little friendly competition in Boston? Because you need it. That's how you stay ready. And so I called several people, like, how do I do polling? How do I do text messages? Like, how do audiences get involved? And I figured that out because we all had downtime. That series morphed out of being inspired by what the Roots Picnic did.
I always wanted to know where this came from. That was my personal little egg.
And I'm not going to take full credit. Like, literally, I'm just watching, like, how are the people moving? Because Boston was not doing that at all.
No, we were kind of stagnant for a little while. We really were. But what I saw and what you sparked was more home concerts with artists, essentially. Yeah. You started seeing people in Boston be like, wait, I could do that too. I could turn my whole room into a space and do set design and record myself and still release it on my YouTube.
Absolutely.
And I think that right there was giving people hope to keep going even in the place of uncertainty.
I agree. We also, following that first one, we also had a Black Music Month DJ series because we can't forget our DJs. So they were recording in their office or whatever, but we would literally broadcast that out. And this was like not quite D-Nice yet.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, like, his D-Nice, we saw D-Nice. It wasn't there
yet, but I mean, what he did was phenomenal. But like, just as much as we think about performing and recording artists, like DJs, they're absolutely relevant. So creating that space for them too.
Producers, everything that you did gives people the jobs back. It's not just the artists, it's all the people behind the scenes that are helping make that production of what it is.
Absolutely.
So essentially, not only are you helping these 11 artists, right, which were probably more than that because you also had this competition series, you had the band, you had everybody. There's so much that goes into this. That is very commendable to be able to do in a time where nobody was doing anything. So to take the reins and also to invoke friendly competition in a city that's not always, open to the competitiveness. So you took a risk,
Yes.
even in the midst of nobody doing anything. So that's
Gotta continue the momentum. You can't stop even with, world complications. You gotta be able to find the wins in the atrocities. And so that's what it was for me.
But that's why you're the visionary that you are, because you're able to see, even when there's a roadblock, you're able to see big picture and be able to get through that.
Oh yeah,
Which-
I live in the clouds often to see everything.
I literally say that about myself. As the director of the arts and culture at the Boston Foundation. First of all, for people who don't know at home, because I name Boston Foundation a lot, could you explain to us what the Boston Foundation is and what are your primary goals for Boston Foundation?
Yeah, the Boston Foundation is a community foundation that's been around for more than 100 years that really focuses on centering resources to resolve, minimize issues that are affecting our community, but also investing in the future ideas, leaders, models that are going to actualize this Boston we have continued to talk about. And so my role specifically, and what I want to autocorrect, which is probably newer to you, is I changed my title from Director of Arts and Culture to the Director of Arts and Creativity because philanthropy has no business in culture. So, with that being said,
I'm glad you named that.
so my focus really is about the strategies and really vision around what are the big dials, what are the big institutional, cultural, social models, infrastructure that are going to benefit the most people. And most people meaning those that are oppressed, those who have been caused by those who have been caused by harm, those who have been marginalized, and particularly through the arts, how to invest in and support individuals, collectives, those that are underground, those that are surfaced, and organizations that are not just doing the work, but are seeing and envisioning the long-term impact that maybe currently we can't see. So I'm constantly looking for the ideas, the willingness to mobilize, organize, and get in good trouble while I'm in this privileged seat, right? Because that's how I've been able to move Boston. And I'm looking for those people, those ideas to do that, or else we're going to be a city that keeps talking instead of walking. So
I keep remembering that I'm on camera.
you know.
With that being said, you've held, because we just talked about the museum position, you've held some very prominent roles here in Boston.
Don't name them.
We're not naming them.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to do that. What I will say is when you're reflecting back on these positions,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you've taken away? Good, bad, or indifferent? I know that's a heavy
That's
question.
a very heavy question.
But just think about the last 3.
Woo! Well, the biggest one, the through line for all of my past jobs, that's just a key takeaway and now a non-negotiable, is having full creative autonomy. Right? If I am supposed to be deemed as an expert, given what I've built on my own, then how I see how I'm going to operate in this space do not infringe upon my imagination.
Please.
Let me dream,
Yes.
right? Because you'll get the best of me. So anytime that's interrupted, then I fall to the bare minimum. Because now you're getting in the way of all the things that I know can happen if you just let me dream. And that's been a key takeaway from any of the jobs that I've ever had, things I've even volunteered for. because I can find joy in that. I can find rest. I can find respite. I can be silly. I can be soft in my imagination when it's uninterrupted. And I continue to be in search of that, whether it's philanthropy or museums or education, healthcare, whatever it is. Let me dream, because that process of being creative, once we leave high school, gets killed.
Sometimes before we even get to high school.
Yes, I agree. So as an adult, I want to be able to still dream and be able to craft and mold, you know, Milky Ways and pathways, like all the things, because that instills and inspires more magic in others. And I've seen it. And what happens when you have that as a non-negotiable, it inspires others to also not have that, to have that as a non-negotiable.
Absolutely.
You know, and be able to be problem solvers.
Yes. And that's what I was going to say as well, is that you've always had a very classy, very professional way of leaving and exiting out when you feel as though you are not able to be free.
Correct.
The other side of that, that I want to name, that I think it is important to name, is that we never hear anything about your experience.
Nope.
It is really hard in Boston to be able to do that and still be able to navigate as much space as you do here.
Yes.
How challenging is that for you, or is it challenging at all?
Absolutely challenging, because it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of transfer of energy. And we all leave our footprints and thumbprints in every space, right? Either you choose to leave a lot of that, or you choose to leave little. They both have rewards and consequences to that. My whole thing is our time on this planet is very short. Lucky if it's 100 years. So if I'm going to do anything, it should be that I leave empty, because the world is full of what I've given it. You know what I mean?
I do.
So with that, the legacy and footprints behind me should be big, grand. They should be deep. They should be soulful. You should be able to fall into them. You should be able to see all types of colors and shapes and taste and texture, and know that now the opportunities are much wider because I've done my part on this planet. It is very clear to me more now than ever, I am a servant in the arts. And that requires a great deal of sacrifice. One I've committed to, as hard as it is, but I don't foresee any other industry.
How do you replenish and all that and not absorb all of that energy and that transference of energy into your spirit to be able to still go back out here and be like, hey, everyone, the work still continues?
There's a couple of things that I didn't realize were very powerful. And I actually heard a little quote from Jill Scott recently. But I take naps and I cry a lot.
Release.
I can't remember what her name is because she's from here, but I remember this quote that issues are in your tissues, meaning the muscles in your body. And so if you don't release, it's going to stay there. And as I get into a certain age, I love crying. As hard as it is, I love crying.
Really?
Absolutely. I love naps too. I don't get to rest much. So 20 minutes, 30 minutes, best thing ever. I think being around my son and how he sees the world and his requirement for hugs and how innocent that is, and why I hug a lot of people, because I don't know I'm gonna see you again. I think for me has allowed me to move through a lot, and I journal like crazy. I have my first journal from 2nd grade. I still have this thing.
Wow.
Wow, have things changed. But
What a blessing.
the growth, I have a journal from every single year of my life. It's got more as I get older. There's much more to write about. But to release all the thoughts in my head and to see it on paper and to make notes and go back to it, to reflect on it, not look at it, lets me know I'm growing.
You name motherhood. And you also name sacrifices.
Huge ones.
What are some sacrifices in motherhood that you feel that you do or take or make on a day-to-day because of your work?
Time is the biggest one. Time is the biggest sacrifice, especially with small children, because they're in their very prime age of getting ready to be settled in their values and their belief systems.
Absolutely.
And right now we're like in that last year to which my son is gonna be, and I'm good, and this is what my identity is. And the length of the festival is literally the length of his age, so it's like they're but time is the biggest sacrifice, and then being called out for that sacrifice often by a small child is the hardest to deal with. I think following that is relationships, like personal relationships, intimate relationships, spiritual relationships. You know, being a single mom, being a servant to the arts, widening my ancestral portal as often as I can, and working towards a place of emptiness is hard. It's very, very hard. And so, you know, being in Massachusetts, my cardinal rule is I don't date anyone from my hometown. I know everybody. That's just nasty and weird. I'm not gonna do it. And then also considering like my family is large, so I'm like, I don't know who's a cousin, uncle, niece, like I don't know.
That part.
I'm not gonna risk that. But also, I'm sure these are people or individuals I grew up with. Like, there's just all these different dynamics at play. And I'd rather you experience me for the service that I give than get so deep down into my personal that you blend the two and they're actually two different people. You know what I mean?
I love how you name that, because they can be two different people. And you can be that same person in that one body, being these multi-dimensional people.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that in that thin line? Who pours back into Kat Morris?
Ooh. Still figuring that out. I think when you build something that no one else can see, they marry you to it, even if you didn't sign up for it.
Absolutely. Becomes your identity.
It absolutely becomes your identity. And so I'm at a point where I have to actually physically and metaphorically separate the two, right? There's Catherine T. Morris for Bands Fest and all the other labels and positions, and then there's Kat. Most people conflate the two. They're totally different. Kat is a homebody that doesn't like to be outside the house.
Introverted?
Absolutely introverted. I lean into, partly that's probably one of the only good things coming out of COVID. I'm like, oh my God, I get to be home and away from people.
Listen.
But I also can do this extroverted aspect of that. But I love being home and being still, or finding the more playful things to do, like color and crayons and crossword puzzles. And I love to cook. Oh my God, I love to cook. But I don't have that time to do that. So if anything, I'm home trying to rest. But the little things of joy, like I'm always on YouTube at like 1 o'clock in the morning, just finding different music. Like, what is going on here in the world? Because I may not have time to go travel. So I'm always in discovery mode about what is out here. And I find just amazing art and music that's being made, and it fulfills Cat, right? Then there's the business side of Catherine T. Morris, the enterprise of that, where I'm looking for the best of the best.
Conglomerate.
Or as some of my sheroes will say, they call me mogul.
Ooh,
Or
I
they'll
like that
call
better.
me Brilliance. Like, that's how they greet me, Miss Brilliance, which is interesting. But for me, it's hard to separate the two because I've been convincing people that I can lead this, and it's hard for people to imagine it being leaderless. Or not me.
Ooh.
But, you know, like any vision, it's a seed, right? But that seed requires communal growth.
Absolutely.
It's not an individual. And that's the hardest shift in my hometown, is we like to put all the pressure on the person who seeds the idea.
You are the face. Like, you are the face. And
Which is crazy.
but it makes sense.
I know.
You know, it's just like when I see your baby, I see you. You know, mama? That's just how that works.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm glad that you named that, because that was my next question is, where do you see your leadership in BAMS Fest in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Is that something you still want to do?
So my goal is to find the next visionary for BAMS Fest.
Okay.
I never set out to do this forever. I set out to establish a new infrastructure and way of thinking that we can. And we have, right?
You sure did.
We've created a new tradition that people can be proud of. We have shown a blueprint that Black people can work together.
And people are actually doing,
There's
so many more festivals
I see more
now.
baby BAMS festivals like no one's business. And that's okay, right? Like, I'm actually good with that. I'm good with that. The day ones know who the original is, and that's okay. But that momentum is that there should be more, not less.
Absolutely.
BAMS Festival and BAMS Fest should not be the only. We should be of, right? And so I've actualized everything I said I was going to do. My vision has been complete. So it's time for the next visionary to imagine what BAMS Fest can be.
So master manifester.
So finding that unicorn is quite interesting. But following BAMS Fest after that is now taking what I've built and taking that across the world. How do you build these infrastructures in which can be self-sustaining? Globally, right? Because Boston is nothing unique, except maybe our racism is a little special. But Brazil goes through the same thing. Bermuda goes through the same thing. Like, all of those issues are happening. And BAMS Fest as an organization is a part of a larger ecosystem. What we did was we took all of the broken pipelines that surround us and we welded them differently.
Sure did.
Right? So we're at a point where we're glad to see more curators and producers and festivals, because we were out here by ourselves. Right? Now it's, how do we go bigger? How do we own more spaces? Right? How do we grow our food so that everyone eats? Right? How do our babies stay in their imaginative phase through their adulthood? Where are those epicenters? And that festivals are the graduation of the work. That's it. So for me, it's to then become a consultant, to go into advisory stuff, to be able to groom the next generation of these Imagineers, if you will. That when you have these kind of infrastructures, you can literally change a city, which we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you say the next visionary, I guess my question is.
Oh, God.
No.
Still writing the job description. Go.
What's
Be
the
nice.
job description? No. I guess because we're in Boston, it really has to do with Boston. Would you prefer somebody to be from here?
Great question.
Or would you prefer it to be somebody from Philly or another state or even another country?
It is very clear that the leader, the visionary for Bands Fest is a Black woman. That's hands down.
Okay.
Where they come from, I'm not concerned. I used to be.
Why?
Because I'm a Bostonian. Like, yeah, I want someone from my hometown.
What changed it?
The migration of our people. That's very real for me. We are a transplant transient city. We're not a residential city. Like this, all of those things. And for some people, that's like a great opportunity. For me, I'm like, yeah, but if you don't know how we got here, if you didn't live in those moments, it's very hard to convince locals that you were about it.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm like, ooh, I selfishly would love to see someone from my hometown. But I'm also very aware that groupthink can minimize a larger vision. If you're only fighting for Boston, when actually we need to fight for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because the displacement of artists has now gone into rural suburbs, has now gone into the edges of city limits, right? Blackness is not a monolith anymore. It is multilingual, multicultural. It's coming from many different places. So the representation of the Blackness of the arts is not rooted in just being African American. You got to consider Caribbean, Afro, like all the things.
Yes.
So I don't need to envision that though. But it's what I've been seeing. And this person, this visionary, has to be able to be a plane in the sky and see it all, has to be able to be a squirrel on the ground and know how to do or find the doers, and then needs to be able to be a bird that can fly in between the buildings. And
Shapeshifter.
Absolutely. I'm looking for that. And the only species on this planet that can do that is a Black woman.
Period. I knew that was coming next. I was like, period.
And what I've learned even in my own leadership is, as a Black woman, when we say come on, everybody shows up. No disrespect to my men, I love y'all, but there's a certain je ne sais quoi, there's a certain softness, soulfulness, there's a certain way that our arched eyebrow has a whole conversation that no one else can have. And people take notice. And that power and agency and urgency, care and concern is what I want to see harnessed more and leading this organization.
We talked about your family. We talked about your education. One other question I really, really want to ask you, because again, you said time was one of the main things that you sacrificed.
Yeah.
When it is time for you to take off your cape, what does that look like for you inside your home to return back from Kat Morris to Kat?
My cape has evolved. I've actually had to change it a couple of times. The materials have changed, the colors have changed. And coming out of COVID, my cape has had to be made of Teflon. Any shots that are coming for me,
Bouncing off.
they gotta bounce off. Because who I am protecting now is my son. And my strength has to be of the utmost for him to know what is possible even when the world's crazy. So I think that my community cape has to come off soon. And that the edges of that look different around it. But that design, that materiality has to come from the next visionary. Right? I think born into this work, the cape that I started with had no edges. You know, it was unhemmed, if you will, because I didn't know anything yet. I know a lot now, and I fly different. I used to be really, really high in the sky, fly really low, just above the buildings. You know, all the pillars, all the issues, all the complexities, all the rainbows. Like I fly really kind of low, because eventually I need to land on the rooftop and just kind of see the horizon versus the orbit, or, you know, looking down from the universe. I think for me, when the cape itself becomes a little lighter, it's gotta become lighter. I've been carrying a lot for a lot of different people, and I need to be able to know that my next cape allows me to be soft. I carry a very hard shell, even though I love everybody. But not being able to have the safe space to be soft is like the next iteration of the cape that I see, I just can't get to yet.
That was my next question. Like, what is your safe space? Do you have one right now?
I don't have one. I don't think I didn't have as many when I became an adult. I think that I've been that for everybody else, though.
Absolutely.
You know?
I can attest to that.
And I think it's because folks get a certain aspect of me, and that's all that they want to believe. But I'm like, I hurt too.
And I have feelings too.
You know, like, yeah. You know, I want to be loved. I want to be held. You know, sometimes I don't want to make decisions.
Oh, listen. What does a soft girl ever look like for Kat? Like, what is your ideology of a soft girl?
I'm in a hammock.
Oof, yes.
I'm letting the wind push me in various directions and be okay with wherever I land in that pendulum. You know what I mean? Softness for me is an infinite, an infinite look at an endless ocean. Like it just keeps going, and the curiosity of that allows me to just continue to imagine. Softness allows me to be in space of inspiration and not always inspiring. You know what I mean? I want to be there.
Yeah.
Because Philly for me gave me the seed for Bands Fest, but now I'm beyond that. I'm in a different plane. I'm in a different universe, but I don't get to have that space where here's the most radical shit. Here's the most radical things that are on my heart that I don't want to be judged for, but this is just what I'm thinking and experiencing and what I want to do for people. Right? I want to dance. I love dancing. But I don't want to dance with other people. I just want to dance. Like I want to move my body. I want to feel the soca. I want to feel the classical. I want to feel the blues. I don't get to do that right now.
Right now, because I'm like, it's moving. It's always ever evolving, as they say. And that makes sense. That movement is something near and dear to your liberation because dance class way back when.
Sure do miss them two steps, but yeah.
What do you tell that little girl? Since we're talking about that little girl who went into dance class, what do you tell that little girl inside who started the radio station at school? What would you say to her today?
I would tell little big Catherine, be more outwardly expressive. don't shrink because of your height.
That's
Don't
a bar.
hide.
That's a bar. Can we
Right.
just talk about that? That's a bar. You've been poeting this entire time. Don't shrink.
Yeah. Don't be ashamed of your thickness and your skin tone. And experience every aspect of the arts, even if you don't think you have the skill for it. Just try it. Just try all the things.
So you're gonna try drawing like your brother, right?
I mean, you know, I can
Take
do
a sketch class.
I can
You
do
know,
a
I
good
heard Side is doing some sketch
listen.
classes. Go take a sketch class.
I can do a good stick figure.
Same.
I think to that little girl, travel earlier. I think that would have completely shifted a lot for me. And don't date for a long time. Like, try everything before you settle. Right? And don't, you know, if anything, dreams can defer, but don't delay them too much. That's what I would tell little big Catherine then.
Big C, not the little C.
Correct.
You know? One last question.
Okay.
One last question, because we gotta hit mama.
Oh,
okay?
Lord. Yeah.
In your own motherhood, in your career,
Yeah.
watching your parents work as hard as they did, your mom
Queen bee, literally.
is literally the queen. How has her relationship and inspiration inspired you with BAMS Fest? Because you see Mama at every single.
Mama's
she is with you every step of that way. What does that feel like for you, and how does that make you reflect on what your son is seeing now with you?
My mom, years ago, before she had me, made a promise that she would be a better mother than her mother, and she's kept that promise. She has committed her entire life to ensuring that I have more. Her hugs have literally saved me. Her laughter, her ability to be like, you know what, Kat, you're doing too much. We're going to go out. Shut it down. Turn off your brain. Just reminding me of my own humanity, because I see that in others, and she reminds me of my own. She doesn't always feel she gets it right, but I have to remind her that even when she didn't think I was paying attention, I was. And she is so proud when she hears other people talking about her children. And I think even now, like, we live together and I love having her. One, I know I will always have a home-cooked meal. There's always candles in the house. There's just all the things I'm like, I don't feel like doing, and she's like, I got you.
I love that.
And my son now growing into that kind of environment, you know, he's like, oh, we should get candles. We should get incense. We should cook. I'm like, all the things that I have done because of my mother, my son is like, Mommy, where we going? Where are we going next? We just came from so-and-so. Of course, it's a lot of pressure to be that, but his oyster is endless in terms of its shine and what it can do. And I want to keep that wide open for him so that he knows that whatever the arts he is interested in, if he wants to be a particular occupation, he can, and do it to the best of your ability, because your mama has done that on her own.
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing I will say is, I hug my son at least 6-7 times a day. And he has come to expect that return of kindness. And he questions the people around him that don't exhibit that. Which means the world is beautifully in trouble when he gets older. He's got a lighter torch, but boy, that thing is big and flame, because he sees it now.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
But that's the lineage.
All the way.
cat. Big C, not the little C.
Woo!
We're going to dance, okay? We're going to do the classical. We're going to do the foxtrot. We're going to do a little two-step.
Yes.
I almost cried when you were talking about your mom and just what she said as far as she made a promise of being better than what her mom was, and she's kept that promise.
Mm-hmm.
You have been bred into love, into liberation,
Yeah.
into being able to show all aspects of your talent, your creativeness, your genius. Your genius. Everything that you have manifested has materialized in this real world.
Yeah.
You are powerful.
Thank
You
you.
are intergalactic.
Oh, all right now.
That's your word. That's not my word. The way you are able to cultivate safety in others and in the community, I could keep going. The way in which you see people for real. You see people before they can see themselves.
A little scary, but yes.
Not scary, divine, gifted,
Yes.
divine. As well as, and we were talking about it with Janelle Monáe, okay? You have incredible timing. I don't think you're aware of your timing.
I'm definitely not.
From an artist perspective, organizational perspective, cultivation, what we need in Boston on a city, state level, you have always been right on time. I don't think you realize how good your time is, but you be right on time. I don't think anybody can duplicate what you do. And I know as much as you're saying there's this next visionary, because BAMS Fest, you are the seed. Baby, these shoes, everywhere you have left your footprint, it's gonna be really, really hard to fill. But the beautiful thing is that you've created such a beautiful platform for people to be able to build and expand off that.
As they should.
And for that, I just wanna say thank you.
Oh.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for interviewing with me, for Narratives in Black, because we are blackity black black. Like I said, beautiful resistance. That BAMS Fest is blackity black black. But thank you for just existing. You could have took this and done this work anywhere else, but you brought it home.
Yeah.
And your legacy is gonna continue on for eons. People are gonna feel what you have done here forever. And for that, I'm grateful.
I love you, Queen.
We appreciate you, Queen. I love you. Thank you for being on Narratives in Black. What are some beautiful things you have coming up that you may want to tell the people at home who are watching? I mean, she is looking for the next visionary, y'all. Gotta be a Black woman.
Yeah, gotta be a Black woman.
Gotta be a Black woman.
Our biggest thing is amplifying Black folk music. We're doing a festival. We're doing a concert series. We're doing archival work to amplify and support roots music, our music, and the artists that continue the legacy and impact of folk music. So we're spending the next 2 years unpacking the history, but also amplifying these artists that are incredible writers and are keeping these traditions alive that has been whitewashed for decades. And Massachusetts has a huge role to play in the existence of folk music, Black folk music. So I'm working on that. And working on what the future of BAMS Fest will look like in our city. And leaning very hard into the Imagineers of our next generation. Because I'm old and I'm tired.
Oh, baby, you is not old, but maybe tired, but you is not old.
There's a lot I don't know, and I'm willing to learn, but I can't lead it all the time. So it's time to step aside, and I'm more than happy to do that. And I think the last thing is figuring out where my next destination will be. Because I've hit and been cut by every aspect of glass ceilings that I've had to break through. So I need to be in a strange place where I can thrive the best. So that's the song for me.
No, because it's giving like leaving Boston.
It is, long departure.
Where would you go? Where do you want to go? What is speaking to you?
Probably.
It's giving Houston.
No, Aruba.
Oh, that's way different. Ah, the hammock. That's right. Okay. Aruba.
Aruba is a place that was built out of volcanic disruption, and it was a place that folks came to for gold. And it's so arid and barren, and I'm just like, there is something I can do here. I can water this place. I just don't know how to, and I go back every year. It's a place that calls me. The other place is Puerto Rico.
Oh.
There is something so spiritual about that, and I'm like, okay, all right, ancestors, what do you want me to do?
I can see you there for sure too. That's a conversation for another day. We're gonna cut that. If y'all want to keep up with Catherine T. Morris, please follow, like, and subscribe all things. Yes, we know about the Boston Foundation, BAMS Fest, all of those things. But if you get an opportunity to meet and greet Kat in person, get a hug, because she gives one of the best hugs in the world. I promise you that. With that being said, thank you again, Kat. I love you. I love you. I love you. I'm going to get up and give you a hug. Yes.
Yes, mama.
I love you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Queen.